Joining me now, John Bachman, award-winning journalist, Newsmax TV host, and the author of Turning Point, How Reagan Liberated Grenada and Won the Cold War. John, thanks for being with us today.
Great to be with you and your entire audience there. Thank you, John.
So, John Bachman, I want you to talk about tonight's speech, what you see and what President Trump has to do to showcase what he's done to America, for America.
Well, yeah, sure. I think he's got to focus on what the people care most about, and I heard you talking about this just in the lead up to us. And I think that's giving the American public an understanding of what he's trying to do with the economy. I think a lot of that kind of got shaken up last week with the Supreme Court ruling, but I do love the fact that President Trump refocused in on exactly why he's putting these tariffs in place. He's really brought the entire Republican Party, most of the Republican Party, around on why these tariffs are so important, and focus on the fact that it does take a long time to undo what has been done to our economy throughout the pandemic and throughout the 4 years of the Biden era. This is really a chance for him to do that. I know the president relishes these opportunities. We heard a little bit about his excitement about this speech when he was talking to the U.S. men's national hockey team. He called this the biggest night, and I think President Trump, someone who delivers under high-pressure situations, will deliver big tonight.
John Bachman, I've never seen the fake news left-wing media on the fever pitch negative Trump mission they're on. It's incredible. And when you go in that briefing room like I do every day, the intensity there, the hatred for this guy, the stupid questions that they ask, the whole thing.
Oh, my gosh.
It's incredible.
Ed O'Keefe last week with that question about, can you give me one instance where President Trump has ever been called a racist? I mean, where do these people spend their time? I mean, this guy is a seasoned journalist who's worked for CBS for a long time. I've seen him out on the campaign trail. Where is he getting his information from that he even would ask that question in the first place? I think we were live on the air when that was happening. I almost fell out of my chair that he asked that question.
I mean, what was even the purpose of the question?
I don't know. Instigation. I don't know. I don't know what the point of the question was, and I think that goes back to your point. And the premise of this question is there is so much important information, so many things happening right now that should elicit legitimate questions from the press corps. But they are, the more success that President Trump has, the louder the whining gets from the people who didn't anticipate that this guy could be as successful as he has been in the Oval Office. They just can't believe it. There's a cognitive dissonance. John, you probably know this better than I do, having been in that room, spending a lot of time with those people, also circulating in Washington, D.C. a lot more than I do. These people just cannot simply comprehend the things that President Trump is doing because it's outside of their quote-unquote norms.
You know what? I think you nailed it. We've been trying to figure out they've always been. I've been doing this, for I was at the White House, Trump 1, now Trump 2. So did a lot of coverage there. I'm in the rotation pool, so I get to go to the Oval Office once in a while when I'm in that, they're on that day. But I've never seen anything like it. But I think you nailed it. They couldn't comprehend the level of success he's having, and it's driving him nuts because they know that if this thing takes hold, they're done. So I think that's it, John. I'm going to get to a caller for us, and then we're going to talk about your book, Turning Point: How Reagan Liberated
Paul
Grenada.
Just dropped.
Great.
Oh, Paul dropped. Okay, we had a call. Paul, if you're there, we were just getting to you, and you just dropped. So call back 888-480-JOHN, 888-480-5646. Tell us about your book, Turning Point: How Reagan Liberated Grenada and Won the Cold War.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story that I don't think got nearly as much attention as it deserves. Much like what we were talking about today, there was this disbelief among the press corps, even throughout the entirety of Reagan's first term, that he could actually be successful. Operation Urgent Fury was a astounding success. It was costly. We did lose 19 service members, but the book takes a look at President Reagan's ascendancy to the presidency, his core beliefs on why he would do something like this, and the team of leaders around him that enabled him to make these right decisions. Particularly, there were 600 American medical students stranded on Grenada the island, part of the British Commonwealth, independent, but part of the British Commonwealth, had fallen to a brutal Marxist revolution. It had already been a communist island, but there was a moderate dictator in place, if that really exists. I use that term relatively. But he was actually killed by a more radical Marxist on the island. And in that process, the American medical students were put under curfew. And if they violated the curfew, there were threats that they would be shot on sight. That's when things really escalated for Reagan. It was also on the radar of the Reagan administration because the island had attempted to build or wanted to build a massive airport that could have serviced Soviet military planes. And they got the funding from the communist countries of Cuba and the Soviet Union to start building that. And they were concerned. The geography of Grenada, it's very strategically located. It would allow these Russian planes to fly in and out of Cuba and down to the communist areas of Africa and really help spread communism and Marxism throughout our hemisphere. The correlation to today is that both Reagan and President Trump understand the Monroe Doctrine and how important it is to not cede an inch of territory, even on a small island, to a brutal Marxist regime.
No, listen, I remember that well, and I also remember a scene, I'll never forget this, when the first plane load of American medical students came back, and I remember the first young fella getting off the plane, wherever it was probably somewhere in Florida, getting off the plane, going down to his knees and kissing the ground of the United States. I'll never forget that scene. I'm not sure if it's in your book or not, but I remember seeing the photo of that and saying,
"Oh,
well,
sure." We have the picture in there,
the
and
picture, right?
funny little anecdote about that too, John, is that the media didn't want to interview that guy. Eventually, they did, but they specifically sought out people who didn't think that the operation was justified, if you could believe it. And of course, students being what they are at the time, a lot of them were happy to oblige the media and that type of narrative. But there was no question that a lot of these students felt like their lives had been saved by the Reagan administration.
Yeah, well, when you're kissing the ground of the United States when you get off the plane, I think that's a pretty telling toll. Somehow I
Yes.
remember that. All right, I'm going to have you take one call. Paul in Georgia, line 2. Paul, you're on with John and John Bachman.
Hey, John. I wanted to comment about the Cindy. God bless her, and I hope she finds a job. I think everybody, your whole audience, is praying for her, and we know she's gonna have peace and get that job. Maybe it's not in D.C. though. Maybe that's what is being told to her, is that it's time to move and get away from these people that are so terrible. But John, what I wanted to say is that, Trump wants to convince the media. He can't help himself. He's always trying to convince the media, but he has to just give it up already. They lie. Every word out of their mouth is a lie. Every sentence is a lie. They group together. It's a conspiracy every day. They send emails out to call him Hitler, to call him names. He's a king. He's this. Every day the mass media, 99% of the media is against him, and they work together. And he just has to go on, do his thing. He won. He won. The people believe in him, and they want him to do what he's doing. And he doesn't need to convince not one of these media people that he's doing the right thing. We know he's doing the right thing. And
I'm going to turn that over. I'm going to turn that over to John Bachman, award-winning journalist, Newsmax TV host. Go ahead, John.
I think your caller's right to a certain degree. I mean, President Trump is never going to win with the journalist himself, but I do think there are moments where not just President Trump, but the administration has managed to break through the wall that exists in the established media. I think specifically about some of the moments that we've had with both Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance on the Sunday shows. That audience is never going to be favorable for President Trump, but there have been some great points made. And I do think and John, you can weigh in on this. I'd love to get your thoughts as well. But one thing that's there's a stark difference between the second Trump administration and the first Trump administration is I do feel like he's got better surrogates in key positions in the government to help get his message across. And while you're never going to convince the journalists or the media organizations themselves, you are going to be able to convince some of their audience members, and that's the key.
Well, I agree with you 100%. Covering Trump 1.0 like I did was unbelievable. I mean, half the people in there, they were taking stuff off his Resolute desk. Half the people in there didn't believe in what he was doing. I remember going to a briefing. I remember getting yelled at, yelled at by Kellyanne because I was going to a briefing. What was it? It was General McMaster. Remember him? I forget what title
Oh
he
yeah.
is. General McMaster. So I'm on the radio, and they invite me to his briefing, and so I'm on the radio, and I guess Kellyanne, who was my direct liaison when I was running the Trump campaign in Virginia as chairman. So I said, "Yeah, I'm going to a meeting with General McMaster. He never met a body bag he didn't like." 10:02,
You know,
Kellyanne calls me. She's like, "Dude, I love you, but you can't say that on the air. You're going to a briefing."
well,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
I'll give you another example too. This time is like think about Dan Coates in the first Trump
Oh
administration
my
as his
God.
director of national intelligence compared to what he has now in Tulsi Gabbard,
Right.
who is doing the Lord's work over there, shrinking the deep state, checking on election integrity, uncovering all this stuff about John Brennan, James Clapper, Barack Obama, and what they were
Right.
up to in the lead up to Trump's inauguration in 2017. I
Right.
mean, it's just night and day. And it's unfortunate President Trump didn't get those two terms consecutive, back to back. But I think he's so much better prepared. Those 4 years off really allowed him to line up. And to take it back to my book, that was one of the things that Reagan had in his first term around him that allowed him to make these decisions were people he genuinely trusted. I got to spend about 8 hours with Ed Meese interviewing him about what made Reagan, able to make these decisions when they weren't popular amongst his advisors. And it was just that he had a few people around him that he really trusted. And I think every president needs that, and the most successful ones have had that. And I think President Trump has that this time around.
All right. Get John Bachman's book, The Turning Point: How Reagan Liberated Grenada and Won the Cold War. You can get this on Amazon or your favorite bookstore. You can follow John, very easy, at John F. Bachman. That's BACH, at John F. Bachman. And you can follow him there. John, anything else? I'll give you the final word here.
Yeah, no, I thank everyone for watching us, and I'm praying for all you guys in Virginia watching everyone there deal with this crazy new administration. Elections do have consequences, and hopefully this is a short-term thing, and people will come to their senses there in that state and vote this type of administration out of office. It's really scary how quickly things can change with the wrong people in charge of a great place like the state of Virginia.
Got that right. Between somebody called in the other day and called, I guess, Mickey Sherrill in New Jersey and Abigail Spanberger twisted sisters. I thought that was
That's perfect.
wasn't that
That's
brilliant?
perfect.
It was goes to me had the twisted sisters. Thanks,
I
John.
love it. I love it.
Thanks for what you do.
All right, John.
Talk soon. Good job on News Max. Have me on anytime. Always love being on your show. Thanks for being with us. Coming up next, Sheriff David Clark.